you're unable to.
Feminists started the fight. They started the fight. They started the fight when they framed the relationship between men and women as one of enemies at war with the whole oppression narrative. Women expectations in relationships are insanely high.
So if you're successful with women, it's bad. If you are uninterested in women, like a MGTOW, it's bad. And if you're unable to get with women, it's bad. You're an incel. And if you're just like trying to like, you're not even concerned with women's issues, and instead you're basically choosing to focus on men's issues, like an MRA, guess what? It's bad.
The fact is that men are noticing this, and they're saying, hey, I got this pressure on me, and I don't know if I like it. And then they're like, oh my God, they're a bunch of misogynists for noticing.
A quarter of men bleakly said that they believe no one would fall in love with them.
Is it possible that the men are right, and the average woman no longer thinks that the average man is an acceptable partner?
But remember, whenever men try to form a space, it gets broken up.
This is just like, it's just like, you go and there's some punch, you're at a party and there's a punch and there's a ladle and the cups and there's a big turd in there.
They could have their reputations destroyed just for speaking their minds.
Men oppress women.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame. UK feminists declare war on boys. Here's how we fight back. We're going to be looking at the latest, I guess you could say the latest news. Really not all that unpredictable. We knew it was coming for a while now. And apparently Jess Phillips is leading the charge,
of course,
to teach boys the difference between real life and porn. And other things to essentially protect women. Yeah, that's what we're covering today. So before we get into it, I guess I'll hand it off to Allison to do the other things.
I just want to point out that this is everywhere now. It's Australia.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
I misunderstood. I thought it was in Japan too, but maybe it isn't.
No. The website was called Japan Today, but it wasn't a website about Japan per se.
Okay,
Australian website.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll roll with it. Okay, but it's everywhere. It's Australia, it's Canada. You're fighting back against it in the US. It's probably in Europe, but they're not English speaking, so who cares? Oh man, I'm just teasing. That's all. It just teasing. You guys are wonderful. Don't understand you, but you're wonderful. But okay, so it's like everywhere. These people are marching into younger and younger ages too, because this is proposed that if necessary, they can target 11-year-old boys with this. So they can be exposing 11-year-old boys to a conversation around porn. That's definitely, when I was thinking about what should happen in 2025, giving women like Laura Bates more access to primary school students.
It's not Laura Bates.
Yeah, I know it's not Laura Bates. It's your.
Oh, okay. Somebody like Laura Bates.
Sure. Is somewhere in this, right?
Probably. I'm sure that she's a part of it. Yeah.
I'm sure she's got a snail trail all over this somewhere, But because if you don't know who Laura Bates is, she's a feminist who essentially goes into classes and talks to very young boys about sexual assault. And the way that, if you have ever listened to this woman talk, she sounds like she could get a second job narrating, like being a voice acting for Romantasy. She is that breathless, overwrought, and at the point of some form of complete dishevelment at every moment in her voice. But anyway, so women like this are getting more access to younger and younger boys to enforce this kind of abusive ideology on them. And as always, we bring receipts, right? You don't have to just believe us. I did a lot of work to find a whole bunch of evidence of what we are going to talk about the arguments against what they're doing. And if you're interested in helping me out with that kind of stuff, or having this evidence at your fingertips when you want to push back against these people, you can find it at badgernation.online. It's badgernation.online. It gives you access to our community. The resources will be up in there. Go there if you want them. Okay, it's just it's the easiest way, most centralizing resource for us. So badgernation.online. It's free to enter. The resources are free. You want to take a look. You want to look for yourself, go there. And if you want to send a message at any time throughout the show, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very best way for you to send us a tip and a message with that tip, because your message does not go through YouTube's labyrinth of correct speech. So that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you want to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. So which article? We have two articles. One from the
We have
BBC and
3
from
articles.
well, we have a oh, you might have found another one. There's a lot of this coming out.
No. It's everything that you sent through.
Oh, okay, so
I have.
the third one is an actual. It is a study on misogyny and misandry in online communities. So I figured this would be really good because it's the empirical grounding on what's happening on online communities and who's doing it in terms of hate speech towards the opposite gender. Some surprising findings, some that you may not even know, even if you have been part of the quote unquote manosphere and, treading in our circles, because they've been hiding it. But yeah, so we have that. So look at the empirical foundation for the panic over UK boys and whether or not it actually exists. And then we also have 2 articles, the BBC article and the Guardian. Did either one of them pique your interest? I mean, they're both ideological.
I mean,
Nigerian
yeah, they're
ones.
both trash. I don't know, like let me just look. I mean, aren't they both basically saying the same thing?
Probably.
Um
Just what we can
so
flip a coin. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a
yeah,
tiger by the
sure. I
tail.
mean, I have the BBC one open now, so
Yeah,
I
let's do
could
it.
I
Let's
could
just
just
go
do
with
that one.
convenience.
Do you want me to do it in a female voice?
Oh, can you do that
Uh,
now?
well,
Or
yes.
are you able to emulate a female voice?
I can. I have a audio program that will let me
Sure,
do
why not?
that. I
Yeah,
think. Let me
let's
just
try it out. Let's
open it
let's
up
see.
and see.
Okay,
Um,
sure. Let's give that a try.
okay.
Okay.
So let's see what this one sounds like. We'll try. All right. No, this is these are different. These are not the ones I want. Sorry.
Yeah, and this might be a little bit ambitious.
Why am I not? Oh, no. It's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal.
Okay, all right.
Not that big. All I got to do is increase the pitch.
So how does that sound?
That's awesome. By the way, I got to do some squishies in the cat.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. It sounds like you've been huffing some helium there.
Is that too high?
No, it's perfect for this ideological slop. Go ahead. You probably should start with the title. Oh my god, this is gonna be hard, isn't it?
Boys to be sent on courses to tackle misogyny in schools.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, let's try the first paragraph.
Teachers will be given training to spot and tackle misogyny in the classroom, while high-risk pupils could be sent on behavioral courses as part of the government's long-awaited strategy to have violence against women and girls in the next decade.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That's perfect, Brian. That's perfect. Oh man. Okay, so
I can switch back when, like if I want to just
you
add
want
some
to respond.
commentary.
Sorry, my cat's having a hairball attack now. Wrong. All right, wrong. First of all, these interventions are not actually proven to work. Like when you look at the actual data on what they're proposing, there's no empirical validity behind this first paragraph. These things don't work. In fact, they do probably the opposite, because what's happening is they go into schools, these feminists, let's just call it what it is, these feminists go into schools and they teach boys to take responsibility for things that girls are also doing, which creates resentment and hardens boys' opinions, like their anti-institutional opinions. And there's no other way that they can deal with this. When you're being told by an institution that you need to take responsibility for behavior, when boys are told this and they see girls engaging in this behavior towards them, and the girls don't have to take responsibility for their behavior, it creates resentment. Because what is the alternative? The alternative is to internalize your status as inferior, or to internalize your status as criminal, or to internalize your status as mentally ill, and not in like a woke way that you get to say, well, my mental illness entitles me to do all kinds of impositions on other people. No, it's like you are tainted by who you are, by being a boy. So they either have to embrace that, or they have to harden themselves against the institution. And incidentally, option one, embracing what the institution is telling them, increases their rate of poor mental health outcomes, their rate of self-destruction, shall we say, and their rate of depression. So the institution is asking, or is demanding, that boys either fight back. Well, usually what happens is they go silent, or they troll. They troll their teachers by using Andrew Tate things, like things that Andrew Tate has said, or they internalize and suffer. And by suffer, I mean, this ideology has a body count. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph.
All right, next paragraph.
The plans for schools in England, which focus on preventing the radicalization of young men, have been unveiled as part of a wider strategy, which had been delayed 3 times. Teachers will get specialist training around issues such as consent and the dangers of sharing intimate images.
What about girls?
No,
No. What am I talking about?
No, even though we do have studies that indicate that revenge porn is something that women engage in. In fact, I think we have evidence that they engage in it more than men, although women tend to also be the targets of it. So we're looking at a lot of intrasectional bullying between women. But no, it's just going to be addressing supposedly boys' harms. Because when you're dealing with a situation where boys are already alienated from the institution that you are a representative of, the best approach is to alienate them further by treating them like second-class citizens, right? And again, these interventions don't work. They don't. They have absolutely no empirical validity. So right off the top, these individuals are advocating for things that do not work. They are functionally useless. So even if you're not a boy being targeted in a school, if you're a UK taxpayer, maybe you should care that a good portion of your income is going to a bunch of bureaucrats who do fuck and all. Okay, next paragraph.
Also, like these boys already are having a terrible time, like not being able to, get a job because they're going to be put at the back of the line because they're boys. And on top of that, they got to deal with this in school before they even, like, what good is it even going to do? And by the way, if there is, let's just say hypothetically, there is a problem with, like, I don't know, reports of sexual assault, you're not going to get someone to not do it just by teaching them. It's like teaching people not to steal or murder if they're like prone to doing it. It's not going to be effective, It's just not. The boys that are not going to do it, we're never going to do it. And that's going to be the overwhelming majority. The ones that are, you're not going to be able to deter them by saying, you don't seem to know the difference between porn and reality. So, I don't know. It's just as an aside. All right, next paragraph, right?
Yep.
Responding to the announcement, The Domestic Abuse Commissioner for England and Wales, Dame Nicole Jacobs, said the commitments did not go far enough. She said that while the strategy recognized the scale of the challenge, the level of investment falls seriously short. The £20 million package will also see teachers get training around how to identify positive role models and how to challenge unhealthy myths about women and relationships.
And again, you know what? Maybe it's time to show that study. Do you have it ready in one of your tabs?
Is it the express.co.uk?
No, it's the study. It's the one with
I don't
the
have
bars.
that. You sent me 3 links. Oh,
Oh,
I see
okay.
it now. No,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
BBC article.
No, it's not the BBC
No,
article.
I know. I'm looking at the links.
It's the
Send me
one
the
you sent.
study. I don't have it.
All right, all right.
Oh,
Little
am I
bit of
still? No, I
cross
got a man voice right now.
miscommunication. I thought you sent right here. This one. I'll send it to you again, but you sent it originally to me. Maybe I should have been more clear. Sorry. Void Cat is being a little bit obstructionist
Oh,
today.
this one, women.
Yes.
Women who hate men. Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right. Do you want to look at this now? Sure.
Yes. Yes. I've got my cat safely contained with the squish.
All right.
Yeah. This is really interesting. What it essentially found is that women's subreddits, like feminist subreddits, let's be honest, let's call it what it is, and gender critical subreddits, which is also a feminist subreddit. I'm pretty sure that is the trans exclusionary radical feminist. So you got feminist subreddits, and then you got trans exclusionary radical feminist subreddits. And they compared it to an incel subreddit and the Reddit that I'm actually a moderator of, which is R Men's Rights. And they looked at the misogyny versus the misandry in these various Reddits, and they found something very interesting. They are roughly comparable, at least on first blush. Like, so for example, the level of hatred towards men is comparable to the level of hatred towards women, at least in the incel subreddit, insofar as the way that they defined these things, which is something to look into because you always want to make sure that we're speaking the same language. Their interpretation of what hatred towards men looks like may differ significantly from what they say hatred towards women looks like. But let's take it on face value. Let's assume that it was rigorous. They found that feminist Reddits had the same level of hatred as incel Reddits. Okay. Now the difference is that incels are a reaction to a overwhelming, entrenched institutional ideology that frames the sexes between men, the sexes as defined by oppression. In other words, men oppress women. So these are not equivalents, right? The incel Reddits are tiny enclaves. The rebel base in the icy waste. You remember that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't know the specific name.
Hoth.
The Hoth, yes, the rebel
That's the
waste.
planet. Yeah.
And they're like, they have to travel on tom-toms, and it's
Yeah.
extremely harsh.
Your tauntaun will die before it gets to the first marker. Then I'll see you in hell.
Exactly. That's the incels. They're just running around in this harsh waste, and they're there because nobody else wants to be, and it's easy to hide, riding tom-toms. Meanwhile, the feminists are basically the evil empire with the femosphere coming into view. Gigantic, massive, institutionally privileged. So these things are not comparable. But in terms of the actual toxicity, feminists and incels are relatively the same level of toxic. I have my doubts. I think that one is.
That's what the study finds, not
That's what the study
necessarily.
finds.
Yeah.
But here's the
And
thing.
it depends on how they're measuring that, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like what I was saying.
Like, how do you measure how toxic a man is towards women versus how toxic what we consider toxic for the other way? Because I think that our tolerance for man bashing is extremely high. So like it would have to be really, really serious, like, over the top, like God, like just kill all men type man bashing before they're like, well, we're going to put that in the misandry category. Meanwhile, like a man who is like, I think women should stop having so many kids without their fathers, like the father involved. And they call that misogyny. So it's like, yeah, it depends on how they're measuring it. So yeah, I have doubts too, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's really interesting is even if there are methodological problems for how they measured hatred, they did find something that was announced nowhere. You won't see this anywhere in like media, in the usual suspects, the media usual suspects. They found that feminists on an individual level are substantially more hateful than most definitely men's rights, the men's rights advocate forum or Reddit, and also more hateful than the incels, but on an individual level. So basically, if you look at the content generally classifies on like the men's focused subreddits. If you just look at it at a content level, so you just do an analysis and you slot things into hateful towards men, hateful towards women. Generally, the proportions are very similar, with maybe a little bit more in the incel community. But when you look at the actual level of hatred of the individual members of the community, the feminists are winning hands down. They are absolutely toxic human beings. And we're not going to see this recognized anywhere. Of course you aren't, because these are feminist initiatives. These are feminist bureaucrats justifying their feminist jobs to get their feminist salaries. So you're not going to see any acknowledgement that feminism itself is a seething cauldron of hatred that's inculcating young women into toxic hatred of the opposite sex. And what would you expect? I mean, right from the get-go, right from the very start of feminism, it says that men oppress women. Where do you go from there? The only way you go, logically, is hatred and resentment. And hatred and resentment that's absolutely buttressed by, again, a narrative that has never been proven. There's no non-ideological body of science that proves feminism's premise correct. So what they do is they create the framework and they look through history and around the world and they simply zero in on anything that supports their framework. And then they use that as proof that the framework is true. Well, that's not the way you do science. That's not the way you determine what reality is. So 100% feminist framework is false. But what they're handing to girls is this seething resentment and hatred towards men and boys, buttressed by academic authority. So they appeal to this and they say, oh, well, this is just true. It's not. It is a fundamental lie. Like if it was just a misapprehension or misunderstanding, they misunderstood the data, that's one thing, but they keep promoting it. At this point, it's indistinguishable from legal malice. So it's like, okay, we have one side, which is a hateful narrative buttressed by false academic credentials and huge institutional power. And on the other side, you have dudes who feel lonely being upset on the internet.
Yep.
These are not comparable things. These are not comparable problems. Okay? So I mean, like that's all right. So I'm looking at this at the level
of show the graphs. Is there a graph?
Sure. Let's throw up a graph and take a look at it. That's always
look
fun.
At this graph.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Lick it. It tastes like raisins. Oh, sorry.
No.
That was from when the internet was actually cool. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. Online misogyny. Okay, this is actually an estimate of how much online misogyny versus online misandry is searched for. So as you can see, online misogyny.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's not just searched for, but academic articles on it, citations, that kind of thing. Yeah. So online misogyny occupies a gigantic
That's like
ideological
99%,
space.
just
Yeah,
like
it's like
eyeballing it.
99%. And yet it is just as toxic in the granular detail. It's just as toxic as online
Misandry.
misandry, right? So online misandry is just as toxic. But we don't look at that. And why is that? Because online misandry is the institutional position. Let's be honest. Like, no, misandry is the institutional position. And we'll show you evidence of that as well as we go. So anyway, I thought this was interesting. Online misogyny, occupies a huge space in the literature. Online misandry has there's no recognition of it in the literature. People don't talk about it. They don't write articles on it. They don't do research on it. And yet this research, finally looking at online misandry in feminist spaces, has actually found that they are horribly toxic. I think this should surprise no one.
Mm-hmm. It
I
should.
mean,
No, it shouldn't. Well,
no.
online misandry is not good for business. Online misogyny is.
Oh yeah. Like I did a
Oh.
tweet. Keir Starmer said something about this. We're going to tackle the violence against women by going into schools and doing fucking all. And I'm like, when you see a politician talk about violence against women, check your pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're stealing your tax money. And that's exactly what they're doing. Even looking at this completely neutrally, even if you really care about violence against women and girls, what they're doing is not going to do anything. It's just going to make a lot of bureaucratic jobs, and they are not going to do anything. They are probably going to make the problem worse. And then they're going to blame men for that, online influencers for that, and they're going to justify another 20 billion pounds of your money going to them in order to deal with the problem that they created. It's create the disease, sell the cure.
Not even the cure. Sell the placebo.
Yeah, create the sickness, sell the sickness.
Yep.
And then sell the sickness again. And it is because people their brains turn off as soon as you talk about women and girls being in trouble. Everybody just like turns into drooling zombies. And they just like, yes, we must do whatever this person says without any critical thought. Drool, drool, drool. And it's a really difficult thing to oppose, but yeah, that's where we're at. We're just gonna beat on boys some more because surely that'll work this time. Okay, so once again, before we go any further, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Send your super chows in. Also, Merry Christmas. I can say Christmas. Yes, Merry Christmas. It's almost that time.
Say Merry Christmas.
Yes, I shall.
I mean, if that's what you mean, like if you're into Hanukkah, then just say Happy Hanukkah. But if not, say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Right. I'm supposed to be a Catholic, so there you go.
Oh, you don't have to. You can say Merry Christmas without being anything.
Yeah,
it's just
true.
like it's a cultural thing.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like I as a Catholic, we get to have like colored lights and trees and fun and presents. If you're a Protestant, I guess you can say Merry Black and White Miss.
No, we all, I don't know, maybe in Canada it's like that. I don't know.
No,
all right. So am I going back to the article?
I'm at the Protestants and their hatred of ornamentation. Okay. Just a little bit.
Like smoke machines and rock music concerts at their churches. So, but okay.
Maybe they've evolved past that. All right.
Huh?
I said maybe they've evolved past that.
Yeah, it depends on the one you go to.
Exactly.
Okay. So, am I going back to the article?
Yeah, they no longer have to sit on a stake and eat turnips. All right.
Back to the article?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go back to the article.
All right. So let me see what paragraph I left off at. Okay, yeah. So I think what?
Oh, well, actually, at the level of basic definition, they're a parallel. This is an analysis of how misogyny and misandry is treated in that research that we just did. So it just popped up here. So I can give you an analysis of it. At the level of basic definition, they are parallel. And how they are used and treated, they are not. So I'm guessing what we're going to find from just looking at that one source of data is that it's actually worse. Like misandry is actually worse. substantially worse. This is what I'm predicting. But let's find out, because this is the analysis. Core definitions. Most reference in clinical sources, misogyny is defined as hatred, contempt, or ingrained prejudice against women and girls on the basis of their sex or perceived femininity. Misandry is the direct counterpart. Hatred, contempt, or prejudice against men and boys as a group often express their beliefs that men are inherently aggressive, dangerous, or morally inferior. I'm not exactly sure how they don't notice that men as oppressors, hits all of those, but So as attitudes, hating men versus hating women, the definitions are directly comparable. Where many analysts draw a distinction, a common move in feminist and media writing is to say the key difference is structural power, not proven. Misogyny is backed by long-standing systems that privilege men over women, not proven. Whereas misandry is often framed as reaction, resentment, or punching up, thus treated as less severe. And again, they're appealing to something that has never been proven. And where it has even come close to being proven, it's been disproven. So any science that's close to empirically sound regarding the premises of feminism has disproven them or found them not very good at not without having any predictive power. The only way feminism remains true is in a very specific cherry-picking framework. So feminism has to pick all of the evidence, right, before feminism presents her case for feminism to be true. And obviously that means that feminism is not proven, right? The feminist premises are not proven. So they're justifying this bias against boys, this misandry, based on premises that are false. I'm just going to say it. They're false.
Yep.
So as attitudes, hating men versus hating women as definitions are directly comparable. Where many analysts draw a distinction. Oh yeah, though we already did that. In other words, the dictionary sees them as parallel. A lot of contemporary theory treats misogyny as structural and misandry as derivative or excusable. So in direct opposition with what's actually happening. You remember how I described the manosphere or the incel forums as the rebel base on Hoth?
Yeah.
And the feminists and all of their institutional pals as the empire? Yeah, they're reversing that. So apparently the manosphere is the empire and feminism is the...
Of course.
Of course. And God knows the empire would never frame itself as the underdog. That never happened, guys. In other words, the discredit. Okay, what empirical work on actual hate speech shows. Okay, the 2025 scientific reports paper analyzing four extremist Reddit communities, two misogynist, are incels. Okay, I really am. Like, they right off the bat, they're calling our men's rights misogynistic, and two misandry.
Of course, it
Our
exists.
feminism and our gender critical found that the text level misogynist and misandrist spaces are both noxious communities with similar hate. So that's basically what I talked about. At the user level, the strongest hate peak in the whole data set appears the strongest hate peak in the feminist subreddit. Misandric communities showed more negative sentiment than the misogynist ones, undercutting the claim that misandry is trivial or quantitatively different as an emotional posture. All right. So basically, yeah, this is their focus on boys has no empirical foundation whatsoever. And new evidence is showing just how morally bankrupt it is to focus on boys. So let's continue with the article.
All right. Going back to the article, I already have it up. All right, let me just do the
pitch. The £20 million package will also see teachers get training around how to identify positive role models and how to challenge unhealthy myths about women and relationships. It will include a new helpline for teenagers to get support for concerns about abuse in their own relationships. The government hopes that by tackling the early roots of misogyny, it will prevent young men from becoming violent abusers.
How did we go from abuse, like the gender neutral abuse in a relationship, and then suddenly we're popped out on Like honestly,
They're
there's
not
substantial.
interested in solving any of these problems.
No, not at all, because they make money off of them, Brian.
Yes.
Why would you stop the stream that turns your water wheel? Like, why would you do that? In fact, why wouldn't you just shoot the beavers that are gonna dam up your stream that turns your water wheel? We're like the beavers in this, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Moving on. So, but you notice how they start with, on the new plan, schools will send high-risk students to get extra care, extra struggle sessions for these high-risk students, and of course they mean boys. Including behavioral classes to tackle their prejudice against women and girls. So they mean boys.
Yes. Well, of course. Of course. Yeah.
But it will include a new helpline for teenagers to get support for concerns about abuse in their own relationships. I'm guessing that helpline won't really help boys. And again, there is scholarship that shows that teenage girls are performing a substantial amount of domestic violence in their relationship with boys. Like, if not most of it. In fact, I think teenage girls are some of the most violent groups of people. And teenage to young adult, most violent and most sexually violent too. Interestingly enough, another thing that nobody wants to talk about.
Yep.
Well, and what's interesting, like they start with something gender neutral that sounds just fine, like a helpline for teenagers to get help, with domestic violence in the relationship, and suddenly, boom, like 2-3 steps, and we're at tackle their prejudice against women and girls. Yeah, so it's just going to be, this is going to be completely one-sided, and that, of course, is again going to fix the alienation that boys feel in schools. Of course, that's exactly, we have the ball kicking machine must continue to kick balls. Surely that will fix the epidemic of kicked balls. Just kick more so nobody has the breath to complain, and then everything is fine. Okay.
Yep.
You want to read some more?
All right. Back to the article.
Under the new plans, schools will attend high-risk students. No, I'm sorry. Under new plans, schools will send high-risk students to get extra care and support, including behavioral courses to tackle their prejudice against women and girls. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch criticized the move, accusing the government of silly gimmicks. It's not
just silly gimmicks. It's straight up like targeted. It's targeted at boys. I think it's going to like really piss people off. And again, if you're like, I don't know, like if you want to harass people, you're just going to do it. I don't think this is going to be a great deterrent. I think it's just going to be punishing the innocent mostly.
Yeah, it looks like it was. So this was in that study, everything was coded equally. So there was a bit more volume of general anti-female statements, or at least anti-feminist. I'm going to find out if that was anti-feminist or anti-female, but yeah. Just continue, Brian. I'm going down my rabbit hole, but I will keep an ear out.
She told the BBC the plans were only being rolled out because the government spent most of the summer watching Adolescence, the Netflix drama that explored the impact of social media and influencers on teenage boys. She instead called for more police officers, saying, quote, "We need to remove people from our country who shouldn't be here, especially those who come from cultures where women are treated as third-class citizens. That would be a much smarter place to begin," end quote. You want to say anything about that?
Just a sec. I'm in my little rabbit hole. I gotta extricate myself.
Well,
yes.
All I'll say is like they don't want to, that even if that's true, they're not gonna do that because they don't actually want to address that problem.
Yeah, well, she's not wrong though.
No, she's not wrong. I mean, I wouldn't call it. Let me see. How did she call it?
Oh no, she's
Some
saying it's a
cultures
good
where
thing.
women are treated as third-class citizens. I wouldn't describe it that way because I don't think that's true. I just think they're
No,
different
no,
class.
but she's right
But
about the government spent most of the summer watching adolescents, so that's
yes,
why.
watching adolescents, yes,
Yeah,
for sure.
and okay, so if you just do an analysis of the various interventions that they're doing to so quote unquote solve the problem of violence against women and girls, none of them are particularly none of them are particularly strong. Like the feminist interventions are the worst of the lot. They probably make things worse because they're essentially asking boys to internalize a double standard. And you can't internalize a double standard without damaging yourself, right? So they're asking boys to or they're demanding that boys damage themselves or through self-preservation, harden themselves and alienate and distance themselves from the legitimacy of academia, of education. So that intervention is absolutely worthless, right? And there's some particular features to it that are really interesting. Let me just pull up the data. Pathologizing and medicalizing dissent. Nope, that's not the right one. Wait, one second. Okay. And the second realm of interventions is more community-oriented interventions, so mentorship, non-ideological, but about presenting conflict resolution and that kind of thing. And those do better than feminist interventions. But I'll just float this and see if Brian gets the answer to this right off the bat. There's one thing that you can do that blows all of this out of the water and completely removes the necessity of any of this, either feminist interventions or non-feminist interventions that are based on social conflict modeling and mentors. I'll just leave it to Brian. Do you think you can guess what that intervention is, or what that benefit is, that potential social institution is that far more benefits children, who preventing them from being antisocial? Just maybe in a word, can you get it?
Dad?
Like literally, these politicians and bureaucrats.
Well, that's the thing. That's the last thing they want. But yeah, dad.
Yeah, because dad puts them all out of business. They've constructed, what is this, 20 billion? And this is just a new outlay of funds. If you look at the whole child industrial complex, they're probably looking at maybe even a trillion. 20 billion, maybe 100 billion, probably well more than 100 billion. If this is just this 20 billion is a drop in the bucket and they're still asking for more. So this is probably a substantial career opportunity for bureaucrats, revenue opportunity, and almost no insight, no oversight. And if you enjoy psychologically torturing kids, you get a bonus at the end of the day. You get to do what you love. So I mean, who wouldn't want that? I'm being very sarcastic here, guys. I hope you picked that up. Most normal human beings don't want to psychologically torture children. Maybe a little bit, like stealing their nose or something, but not to this degree. But there's a huge industry dealing with fatherless children. And if children had their fathers, boy howdy, they'd lose their jobs. So this is a whole bunch of these articles is a whole bunch of and this research is a whole bunch of bureaucrats saying, well, they'll take our gerbs. If we recognize the importance of, they'll take our gerbs, those fathers.
That's it. The fathers are going to take your jobs. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. That's their entire shtick. The fathers are going to take their jobs. So what's really interesting to me is how things are coinciding in UKistan. Like recently, they have put into place policies that take away the expectation that shared parenting is something that you want to aim for as an outcome for children. So now they're taking away the last
protection for fathers in their families, which is the assumption that a child actually even needs their father, which is not an assumption. It is, in sociology, there is fathers are good for their children, like are really important in their children's lives. And then there's the rest of sociology, which all is utter bullshit. Like it's all fails the replicated, it doesn't replete, you can't replicate it. Like you have this one finding in sociology that is more robust than the entirety of the rest of it. And they refuse to acknowledge it as true. They're just like, and then they put out, then they allow things like adolescence, which implicates involved fatherhood as the reason why this boy is so violent. Like they put that and they start to allow that to influence policy. And then suddenly we do away with this expectation that maybe children get to stay with the father that will probably protect them from being a client in the child industrial complex. And we're like, oh, well, we don't need that. And we're allowing bureaucrats to make these decisions. And these bureaucrats are protecting their jobs. And then they're also doing this. Like, they're not, because they took fathers out of their children's lives, now we have a whole bunch of antisocial problems. And they're once again constructing a $20 billion gravy train for themselves to do nothing, to intercede with an ideology that the only thing it's good at is blaming its failures on its victims. That's like feminism is great at one thing, blaming its failures, like blaming boys for the failures, for failing to become better as a result of feminist interventions. So that's the one thing that feminism is good for, blaming its failures on its victims.
Yep.
Okay.
They literally in adolescence do, like, they take the one factor that's probably the one that's going to give you the best outcomes and make it the cause of the problem.
Yep.
That's what they did. And I know that wasn't an accident.
No, it wasn't.
So
that's right. They need fatherless children.
Yes, they need fatherless children. Exactly. Easier to control, easier to govern. That's what it's about.
Lots more justification for interventions in schools. You know, how many new feminist jobs are being made right now with this $20 billion grant, and also this new policy to get rid of fathers in children's lives, thus leaving them father deficient and ripe for the tender mercies of the child industrial complex in the UK. Okay.
All right. So let me see where I leave off. Oh yeah, so here we're on Prime Minute. Okay.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said he did not intend to diminish the focus on the men that are the perpetrators of this violence, but said the government must address the misogyny and inequality that were the root cause. He added part of that was showing a positive, aspirational vision for boys and men.
So he's saying that actually, if we're going to fight against violence against women, what we have to do is we have to address inequality. Typical commie gobbledygook, just saying. Yeah, that's part of it right there. So if we just make women equal already, with like they're not equal enough. There's a lot more equality to go around, and women have to get all of it. And once they do, then we can start talking about addressing misogyny. So it's crazy. All right. Anyway,
keep going.
Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips described violence against women and girls as a national emergency, adding the government's aim was to be, quote, so ambitious that we change culture, end quote. Liberal Democrat spokeswoman for Women and Equalities, Marie Goldman, welcomed training for teachers, but said unless it was accompanied by steps to properly moderate online content, she had no doubt it would fail.
Well, there you go, UK. Feminism is going to usher in the panopticon in your country. They'll all be under the tender gaze of Big Mama. Okay.
So yeah, they're going to be monitoring I mean, look, y'all don't live in a free country. I hate to break it to you, but it's going to be even less free. So they're
Yep.
going to be monitoring online content, and I know this is not going to be limited to children.
No. Well, they already have instituted a
Yeah,
whole.
I know they're already doing it. Yeah.
But I wanted to get into that Jess Phillips. Adding the government's aim was to be so ambitious that we change culture. So this is basically the next step in feminism's long march on sexuality and gender identity. Right. So what they want to do is they want to teach boys to be this black category. Like, I mean, honestly, they just want to teach boys guilt and shame and to take responsibility for human ills that girls are equally responsible for. So basically, like I said, put them in a black category and teach them to submit to feminism. That's the cultural change that she's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's keep going.
All right.
As part of the wider strategy, the Home Office also announced a ban on nudification tools, which use generative AI to turn images of real people into fake nude pictures and videos without their permission. How
Okay,
this will work has not been made clear.
Like, can you imagine asking for permission? Hey, can I take this picture and make like a naked, deep fake of you? Like, who's gonna do that? And then they're like, oh yeah, sure. Thanks for asking.
but here's the thing, okay? We talk about deep fake nudes, and usually it's about women, right? And creating like revenge porn or whatever else. But they're like, have you guys ever read what women are writing about on like Archive of Our Own or fanfic? You ever read what they're writing about male celebrities? And this stuff is really, in many cases, vile. Like, it's enforced humiliation, sexual assault. So they're writing these fantasies with actual male human beings. And nobody stops and says, hey, maybe that's actually in some ways worse than visual pornography, like taking a picture of a supermodel and removing her clothes. And they don't just write this stuff, they draw this stuff too. But nobody cares because it's women exploiting men sexually, famous men sexually. And you see this in the language that's never even talked about. Now that's an online. And the other thing is that those communities sharing that incredibly, like they have a fascination with humiliating men, subjecting them to sexual assault, taking away their right to consent, not treating it as something that is important to address from a moral perspective. Torture porn, cannibalistic porn, porn with children. Like, you will find all of that in these communities for women. And nobody ever says, yeah, that's something we might want to police. No, it's always just online pornography. And the men's stuff is pretty tame. Like, I dare you to spend a week looking through the bowels of Archive of Our Own or Y Gallery and not realize that women are, like, men are, they have their things that they like. Women are truly depraved.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no hands down, there's no comparison. Like, it is hideous. And their behavior towards men as a result of this kind of attitude, like their pornography and their art, their pornographic art, there's a good portion of it that portrays an incredibly entitled and a lack of understanding of men's consent, or a recognition of men's consent, or a recognition of men's humanity at all. So it's like the worst kind of snuff porn, torture porn, forced humiliation porn, anal rape porn, that they can possibly target at men. And it's right out there. They don't hide it. And then people like this are like, oh, but we got to worry about the actually sort of tame things that men do, like taking off a supermodel's bra, or liking a threesome with two women, or any of that stuff. It's like, yes, have you seen what women are doing on the internet? And have you seen that a lot of these communities, when they actually get their claws on live men, what they do to them? Like they don't have a sense of
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, like
Yeah.
they don't respect men's bodily autonomy. And it comes out in their fiction and it comes out in their behavior, but nobody talks about that. Nobody. Even though this conversation should include that. All right.
All right. Here we go.
Phillips said the government would work with tech companies to make it impossible for children to take, view, or share nude images through nudity detection filters. Schools to take part in the teacher training pilot will be chosen next year, while ministers will aim for all secondary schools to teach healthy relationship sessions by the end of this parliament. The taxpayer will foot 16 million pounds of the bill, while the government says it's working closely with philanthropists and other partners on an innovation fund for the remaining 4 million pounds. The funding covers the 3-year spending review period. Nearly 40% of teenagers in relationships are victims of abuse. Domestic abuse charity Reducing the Risk has said. So notice
they're saying nearly 40% of teenagers in relationships. They're not specifying it by gender. We're just supposed to assume it's women. I don't know if you guys noticed that, if you caught that. So like before, it was like they were talking about women, and then when they bring out the statistics, it's teenagers.
Yeah, so you got to know that boys are a substantial portion of that. So again, we're dealing with a situation where women or girls are engaging in it just as much as boys. And we see the toxicity. We have now evidence of the toxicity. So I did do a little bit of an investigation. The research that looked into the misogyny versus the misandry online, it did use the same framework. And while it did find a greater volume of what it considered to be hateful content on the more male focused subreddits, but then I mean also you have to bear in mind that these places are a lightning rod for a lot of stuff, right? So I'm not sure how valid that is, because there will be moderators on our men's rights who leave stuff up, and just because free speech, right? Let them vent whatever, but we don't actually agree with it. But when you look at how the users are engaging with this content, it shows a completely different picture, because feminists are overt on a personal level. As an individual, they are more hateful. So while they may have less overall hateful content, they are identifying it with it far more strongly, right? So you get the difference? So you don't, when you look at that, how much of that is just churn in the men's rights subreddit, since in the men's rights subreddit, they're not actually engaging with this hateful content to the same degree as the feminists are engaging in this hate, like confirming it, liking it, mentally masturbating over it, what we see feminists on Twitter doing, what I see feminists on Twitter doing, basically just marinating in their hatred for men. And we see that. So they're actually really engaging with this content, really eating it up, feasting on it. Whereas in the men's rights community, that's not what's happening. So more of it may sluice through, but it sluices through. You're not seeing the personal engagement with it in the men's rights community. So, I mean, that would indicate that the situation is much worse for women. The hatred of the opposite sex is much worse for women, if we look at it from an individual level, which is what nobody has talked about in this study. And that really is the level that matters. I mean, it doesn't really matter how much toxicity is being sluiced through a forum if nobody in it is really invested in it, and not emotionally invested in it. You see what I mean? Like it could be bad, it's just whatever, it's just noise, right? But if the people in the community are lovingly stroking it, like my precious, precious, precious misandry, and they're all like letting it become part of themselves. That's a more serious problem. And I think that's what they found. And that's why they're not talking about that. Because very few people are ready for the message that women's hatred of men is substantially more worse than men's hatred of women. And it's an institutional problem. It's an institutional problem.
It's super normalized.
Yeah,
It's super normalized. Like we don't even know it when we see it, you know? The reverse, we probably see it too much, like where it isn't, where it doesn't exist.
Okay, so let's do the next paragraph.
All right, let's do the next. Huh?
We're gonna have lots to say on that.
All right, let me just see where we left off. Okay, here we go.
Online influencers are partly blamed for feeding this, with nearly 1 in 5 boys aged 13 to 15 said to hold a positive view of the self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate, according to a YouGov poll. Schools in England are already required to identify and tackle misogyny, and some teachers said schools were already doing the kind of work in the new measures.
I kind of want to know this poll, this YouGov poll. I'm curious on.
Take a look. Take a look, because I got an outcome from that study. So I finally got it to spit out something. In the core definitions and quantitative analysis, misandry and misogyny are operationalized as parallel, but in the narrative about the manosphere, appeals to misandry and some anti-feminist framing are treated less as straightforward evidence of hatred towards men and more as a part of a misogynist rhetorical move. So even this article, this research is not capturing the full scope of misandry, because it's giving misandrists some softballs, because it's reframing men calling out misandry as potential misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, even with the softballs, feminists still the peak of hate. Feminists still are the ones who spike the hate peak. Like they're the ones who are creating the hate tsunami, the hatosphere, the hate mountain, you know, on like Mars, Olympic Mons of Mars. That's the feminist hate pimple of the freaking solar system. They constructed that out of their hate. So they're leaving everybody in their shadow. But even with the softballs, they're still coming out on top when it comes to personal hatred and personal engagement with hatred. It's really bad when even your ideological science is pointing fingers back at you. So you can't even twist. It's so bad they can't even manage to twist the science. They can't even manage to p-hack the science enough anymore. Okay.
All right. So let me see. Yeah, so like I looked at the YouGov. So the way they do these polls, I mean, I didn't find a specific one, but it's like on a spectrum, right? So if you say anything like if you're neutral on Andrew Tate, it probably counts as a positive view. So it's like, you know, slightly negative, pretty negative, negative, very negative. And then there's the other way. So if you're like anywhere on this side, they count it as positive. Not that it matters. Like, I think people should, you know, you should be able to have an opinion on whoever you want, positive or negative, and it shouldn't mean anything about your character or your behavior, but, you know, whatever. So going back to this.
Schools in England are already required to identify and tackle misogyny, and some teachers said schools were already doing the kind of work in the new measures. Sukhat Dami, principal at Beacon Hill Academy in Dudley, said, "The challenge isn't starting from scratch. It's ensuring that this £20 million is spent wisely.
Billion. Sorry, guys.
£20 million, yeah, is spent wisely and in partnership with schools already leading the way."
Does this feel like a bunch of goblins and they've captured a chicken and they're all just like running around with it, or a hobbit or
20
something?
million pounds?
Yeah, like these people are all just like salivating. It's like, oh boy, we gotta make sure you give some of that to me. I can make sure it's spent wisely.
I think that's definitely what it's about.
I wanted to talk about Andrew Tate.
Sure.
So essentially what's happening is British school systems are subjecting boys to a double standard, like a pernicious double standard. So they're expected to take responsibility for things that girls also do. And girls and women do not have to take responsibility for these things. So they're expecting them to internalize this inferiority, like you're less important than girls. Girls are allowed to get away with this. And what Tate does is he gives them a framework. So, and the reason why you carry a heavier burden is because you are superior to women, which, isn't far off, because, this whole thing is basically these feminists telling men to man up, or boys to man up and be better, but also women are better, as good or better than you are, right? So it's like Andrew Tate gives these boys a framework to navigate all of this without being crushed by the double standard, the dismissal, and being treated like they are expendable in this narrative. So, of course, doing more, using the ball kicking machine to kick more boys' balls is going to increase the sales of the codpiece manufacturer, right? That's going to increase the sales. And what we have is the feminists are like, well, we need more ball kicking machine. And somehow we need to stop boys from going to the codpiece salesman to get something to protect their balls from us. And they don't see you are the one that is making the codpiece salesman a billionaire or a millionaire, right? You are the one forced. Of course they see that. And then they turn around and they use the fact that boys are going to get cod pieces as evidence that they need stronger ball kicking machines.
Yep.
And it is, they're driving. And I have to actually apologize to you, Brian, because a while back you said, well, I would rather them listen to Andrew Tate than commit suicide. And I was like, I don't know if I completely agree with that sort of choice. And now I have to say I do. Having looked at all of the evidence of what the UK is doing, right? Now, I don't think that Andrew Tate is a great role model, okay, at all.
Sure.
But he is giving them a way to deal with without killing themselves. He's giving them.
Yeah, I mean, like, unfortunately, I think that these kids, and I don't think it's as many as they say, but they're making a choice. It's rational.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's because at least with Tate, they're getting some tools to, like you said, be able to weather the storm till they
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's like a personal, they're learning a personal kind of ability to manage the situation, right? They're not, so the message is basically, become stronger to grind through this. And it's not face the actual institutional, not face down the actual institutional problem and call it out for what it is. It's just focus on yourself, which is a fine message. Like, if that's what boys need to not commit suicide, you're right, Brian. It's better than dead boys. I dare anyone to say that they would prefer the dead boys to Andrew Tate. Go ahead. Tell us that, if that's the preference.
Yeah.
Just lay it out. Tell us that you would prefer boys dead from suicide than listening to the message that Andrew Tate gives, that regardless of what these people do to you, you are strong enough to overcome it and deal with it because you are a man and you have inherent strengths. Right? Now, again, I have my own problems with his message, but I don't have a problem with that part.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not prefer the dead boys. Okay, let's go. Let's read it.
All right, I got a super chow. Richard Bier gave us $5 and said, a factor to consider is whether these women are these people as real people versus just a character in their particular entertainment drama / romantasy novel, or soap opera that they are just consuming as entertainment and ignoring the actual humanity of the people who they are fantasizing about.
Of course.
Yeah, well, a lot of they get it in their head that, you know, there is like a, let's say, a blurring of the lines of reality and fantasy. I mean, remember what was it, Raylo, is that what they called it?
Yeah.
Raylo, that was like with the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and they were like shipping Rey and Kylo Ren, and it was like a real thing. And when it turned out that those two actors were not actually romantically involved, they like freaked out about it because it was like in their head canon, it was real. So yeah, I mean, this does happen.
It does affect people. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm a misogynist. We have special people in our main chat now. That's cool.
Oh, we do. It is.
You're migrating, yeah.
Or worse. Wait, I don't see any, like special people in the main chat. They figured it out, huh? Great job.
Yeah, they made their way.
Yeah, what does that even mean at this point?
What does what mean?
Misogynist.
Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't
it's
mean
just
anything.
A word that people use to try to get you to stop talking. That's all it is. It doesn't mean anything. So thanks for nothing, I guess.
Who called you a misogynist?
I've been called it many times.
No, but in the special chat,
it doesn't mean anything to me. What?
In the horizontal chat, I don't see the misogyny calling.
You don't see it?
No.
Go to the live. Make sure you're not looking at top chat. You have looking at live chat, and you'll see it.
Okay, all right, I'll see. I have to change all this crap.
Yeah, apparently I'm a misogynist, and this is a misogynist radio show.
Okay, cool. Well, that's cool.
Thanks.
Why don't you give us some evidence that counters what we're saying?
Yeah, just prove us wrong. So.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're citing actual studies. What you're doing is citing your feels. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, back to this.
Pressed on BBC Radio 4's Today program, on which measures were new, Phillips said teachers currently did not have anywhere specialist or targeted to send pupils who were showing signs of sexually harmful behavior. The Department for Education's statutory guidance already says secondary pupils should be taught about consent, the negative impacts of pornography on sexual relationships, and that sharing. Yes?
Okay. If boys are engaging in sexually inappropriate behavior, that is a red flag for being a victim of sexual abuse. Why are they being directed to feminists? What do they expect to get? You know what? I'm getting really freaking sick of this. This is how you get rapists, right? This is how that happens. You have a boy or a girl who is sexually abused, and they get treated like this institutionally, right? Instead of actually being treated like a human being who has been experiencing an adverse childhood experience, right? This is sick. This is going to do the exact opposite of reduce violence against women and girls. But of course, we know that because we actually care about violence against women and girls here. At least I do. I'm pretty sure that Brian does. It's just not our focus. But strangely enough, I can call out when bureaucrats use an ideology to promote things that put women in danger. Something that feminists seem to struggle with when it's their ideology. And right here, this is feminists putting women in danger. Okay, and it says nothing to do with immigrants. They are making it worse for boys who are sexually abused to go on and heal. And that is the group of, well, actually, it's not boys who are sexually abused. It's boys who've been subject to multiple forms of childhood sexual adverse experiences, okay? Those are the boys who are more likely to be in any category of antisocial. Why are they being directed towards feminists who are going to alienate them, inculcate them with shame and guilt, and if they don't accept the shame and guilt, make them even more suspicious of any kind of institutional intervention, right? Make them more suspicious of adults, more suspicious of authority. Surely, Surely pouring the gasoline on the fire will put it out, right? You have boys who need actual care. Oh my God.
What happened?
Oh, I've been struggling with my I have this thing that I put my elbow on,
Yeah.
and she just strafed in like a freaking meteorite and hit it, and then lost her footing, and she decided that she was going to regain her footing on my arm. So I'm in a slight amount of pain right now.
Cat things.
Yeah, just cat things. She also got my leg on the way down. And now she's licking her butt because she feels embarrassed. She realizes that was not the most graceful thing to have done. I doubt she cares about, me. But anyway, I'm sure she does on some level. It's just I don't think cats are aware of the damage they do. Correct me in the comments. I'm sure many of you
They're very solitary.
Yeah, just
They think about themselves first.
okay. So anyway, like, what was I saying before that gigantic distraction? Can you help me out? Help me out.
You were basically talking about like how this is really sick.
Yes, it is really sick.
Yeah.
Because they're not protecting anyone. They're not protecting. They say they're protecting women and girls. They're not. They're promoting their ideology over protecting women and girls. And that's actually the sick, fucked up core of all of this. Yes, they target boys, but they are also making the world worse for girls. Because all they care about is the money. I mean, I can't say that for sure because you can't entirely read into people's intent. But the thing is that they understand every part. And I'm going to lay out a argument at the end, towards the denouement of this video. I'll lay out an argument, try to get through it pretty quick, and a possible way of opposing this for boys who are dealing with it, or anyone who has a young person who is going through this situation. Maybe give them some advice, or at least tell them that they're not insane. But yeah, they don't care about women and girls. If they did, they wouldn't continue to promote interventions like this. They wouldn't say, well, these boys are throwing red flags about being antisocial. Let's put them under the thumb of ideologues who will treat them like second-class citizens and make their rage and resentment towards women worse. Surely nothing bad will come of that. Okay, next paragraph.
All right.
Press on BBC 4 Radio Today's program on which measures were new. Phillips said teachers currently did not have anywhere specialist or targeted to send pupils who were showing signs of sexually harmful behavior. The Department of Education statutory guidance already says secondary pupils should be taught about consent, the negative impacts of pornography on sexual relationships, and that sharing and viewing of indecent images of children is a crime. Updated guidance due to be rolled out from September specifies that pupils should be equipped to recognize misogyny as well as its links to violence against women and girls and understand the importance of challenging it.
Oh, they already probably know. All you have to do is
but are you going to go with their definition of misogyny, which is basically anything that makes women feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
updated guidance.
Yes, updated guidance due to be rolled out from September specifies that pupils should be equipped to recognize misogyny as well as its links to violence against women and girls and understand the importance of challenging it. Paul Whiteman, General Secretary of School Leaders Union NAHT, said it was positive the government was recognizing the importance of training and support for school staff, but said schools were just part of the solution.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, Brian, it's like a bunch of goddamn goblins with a chicken arguing over it. Oh no, don't give it to the teachers. We got to give it to the bureaucrats. You got to give it to the school counselors. You got to give it to, you just give it to Sue, who just, we don't even know what she does. She just sits there and looks very woke, but we know it's important. So we'll give her some. It's like an argument over this fat chicken that somebody found. And they're just like, oh, I deserve some of that.
Yep.
Oh, good grief. Okay.
All right.
Pepe Diaso, General Secretary of
What
the
a waste
Association.
of a Pepe. What a waste of a Pepe.
That's not a rare Pepe. General Secretary of the Association of School and College Leaders said it was essential the government introduced effective measures to prevent at source the spread of online misogynistic content, which is served up to young people by social media algorithms.
So more suppressing people like us, basically. Let's be honest. Like, we're put us on another blacklist because we talk about the things that these people won't, and because we're a bigger threat. Like, ultimately, I think it's because we put our finger right on what's going on. I'm not even sure Tate. I don't think Tate does it. I think we do it. We talk about the stuff that really makes them scared, which is pointing out that this has, it doesn't even really, at the end of the day, have anything to do with ideology. It has to do with a whole gigantic grift, government bureaucratic grift justifying itself. The child industrial complex must be fed. It's like something out of Pink Floyd. Okay.
Yep. All right.
Nicola McLafferty, pictured here, 42, a victim of domestic violence, said survivors of domestic abuse, both men and women, should go into school assemblies to speak to children about it and share their lived experience.
Okay, how did she?
For a small fee, of course.
Yeah, but she is talking about male victims of domestic violence. So once again, we have male victims of domestic violence being used as currency to justify this targeting boys. Like, if you took this out of context, right? Oh, that seems very fair and gender equitable. That's going to bring in men who are victims of domestic. Yes, you go up like 10 paragraphs and it's very explicit. We're targeting boys for anti-misogyny. So it's like, you use the alleged prevalence of domestic violence against women to justify targeting boys for misogyny. And here you are actually recognizing, caping, putting a fig leaf on what you're doing. And because it isn't evolution. I'm like, the UK is difficult because all of your statistics on domestic violence go through a feminist orifice. I should say office. Sorry, not a feminist orifice. Maybe it is a feminist orifice. Anyway, so it goes through feminism. Like, all of it's filtered through feminism. So most of it is complete bullshit. This is the same with Australia. But if you actually go to a real country like the UK, the United States, we do get high-powered community surveys that find parity in almost all forms of domestic violence between men and women. If you're looking at the last year numbers, which are the ones that reduce memory errors in men most? And you look at specifically high-powered community studies that arrange their methodology and their questionnaire in such a way that they're not pre-selecting male victims out of it, right? If you find those studies, you will find parity. And there's no ways that those studies found parity, and there is actually significant asymmetry in domestic or sexual violence between men and women. This is the thing that nobody wants to talk about. Men and women are equally violent. Men are bigger and stronger, so their violence has more consequences, but they're equally violent. And nobody wants to talk about it. I'm glad that this individual was put into this, but she, and even this, like this fig leaf for the violence against men, It never gets to the point where they allow it to inform their ideology. And that's the problem, because it's the ideology using this data, which they never update towards the most reliable data, that justifies targeting boys for these initiatives. So while this is nice to see, I know in this context, it's just a fig leaf for what they're actually doing. All right.
Well, I mean, it's clear that it really is just about targeting boys and trying to control their behavior and control their, I guess, the way that they spend their time online and all of that. And they're bringing on somebody who has spoken about men and women, but she's not going to be, if she's going to be speaking on this as part of this program, she is not going to be speaking about male victims unless it's framed as like a toxic masculinity thing, or if it's framed where they are male victims of male perpetrators. I think that's like, because at the end of the day, there is a certain narrative that has to be preserved. And the narrative is that men are always the aggressors and women are always the victims. And that's the only way you can look at this. And if you like look at things honestly and find that it's not that black and white, then they lose funding, they lose support, they lose control of the narrative. And that's really what this comes down to. So
yeah, so the work that we do is absolutely critical, because I find I dig up all the diamonds, all the gems, and Brian explains what the hell I'm talking about.
I guess. Parse through it. All right. So yeah, I mean, I can tell, like I said, they bring out this woman. This is at the end of the article, and she's like, oh, I'm a survivor. So first of all, she's a survivor of domestic violence. So that could already sort of paint her perspective, unless she's like really stoic and objective in how she pursues the data that she then goes on to talk about. But if you like brought on, say, Erin Pitsey, who like knows her shit and understands, you know, like the she has enough experience with domestic violence as a concept and the people who participate in it and the cycles that it creates, then you would be onto something. But they're not going to do that, because Erin Pitsey would shatter the narrative, and the narrative is what's most important to preserve, because it's what keeps these people paid, it's what keeps them bankrolled, and it's what keeps the government growing. So like, and this is what they want. So
all right, anyway. Let's do another paragraph.
Yeah, let's do it.
The government has announced a raft of measures in its overall VAWG strategy, including the introduction of specialist investigators to every police force to oversee rape and sexual offense cases, and the wider rollout of domestic abuse protection orders after a trial.
This is ridiculous. The UK already has a conviction rate for sexual assault that's like double the rate of any other violent crime. And they already have a problem with police withholding exculpatory evidence from the defense. So they already have a problem with institutional corruption against boys and men who are accused of sexual assault. They already have a problem with this, and they're going to make it worse. Like, what the hell are you doing, UK? Like, I know that immigration is a problem, but at some point you got to ask yourself, is Sharia law better than this? I'm just laying it out there. I know that's quite a controversial statement, but at least men get a shake in it. Okay, let's keep going.
These mean individuals can be banned from contacting a victim, visiting their home, or posting harmful content online.
Oh, good Lord.
Let's go after the mean people. Going after the meanies.
You know that meanies. You remember that place that we talked about, the county is, I don't know if it's a county. You probably have some really cute name for it if you're British, but the municipal area that had all of the trash strike, basically. Brighton, something like that. Anyway, and they had a trash strike because they tried to equalize.
Oh yeah. No, I remember that.
Birmingham, I think. They had a trash strike because they tried to equalize the pay structure between the female-dominated carrying and catering and indoor jobs that don't involve trash, and the male-dominated jobs that do involve trash and being out in the elements. And then they got men. Men didn't want to work anymore. And then they got a trash strike, and then they got huge amounts of garbage in the street and rats. Well, now they got a new thing. Apparently they have some famous street that's for Christmas shoppers, and now they're putting up anti-aggressive vehicle pylons because of the raft of
Trucks of peace.
Yeah, raft of trucks of peace around the world.
Never address the actual problem. Just try to find ways to address the symptom, or just blame men.
Yeah, just blame men.
Which is something that they're really good at doing.
Yeah,
not specific men from specific cultures or parts of the world that are incompatible with your cultures, but just it's a lot easier because I don't want to be called racist. Let's just blame all the men. No one's going to take an issue with that. Yeah. And of course, they're not wrong. If you just blame all men, then all of a sudden people are not offended.
Yeah. It's astounding how that is. It's like you can hide anything in blaming all men. Anything, any social problem. It's almost like opposing that by blaming women could do a lot to actually start solving these social problems that use blaming men to hide themselves, or at least just question blaming men every time. But the reason why I say we have to be able to blame women is because when you say something like, well, are men really to blame? What do they say? What do they immediately jump to? Well, are you blaming women? Oh, no, of course not. Of course not. Of course men must be to blame. So if we are ever to challenge the narrative of blaming men that hides all of this political chicanery, right? We can't directly call out the men who are doing this because that would be some kind of ism. So we'll just blame all men. So that's how you dilute focus and hide and cape for something. And we will never be able to stop it until when we say, you know what? I don't know if all men are to blame here. And somebody says, are you blaming women? You just say, yeah, well, maybe I am. That's a possibility. Let's sit with it for a while. Maybe there's some validity to it.
You can't do that.
Let's just sit. Let's have some tea and think about it. It could be. We could be blaming women. We could just be blaming men and women's interaction and some kind of emergent property of how they interact with each other. Or we could be blaming directly women. Let's cogitate on it. Let's just have a cup of tea and some biscuits and think about it. Instead of, oh no, of course we have to blame men. And then you hide the problem once again. That's where they're hiding all these problems, in blaming men. And then you can't call it out because if you say, I don't think men are to blame, you're immediately a misogynist. All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Let's
see. Announcing the package in the Commons, Phillips said the strategy would deploy, quote, the full force of the state, end quote, across local and national government to prevent VOG.
You know what?
She said
the UK is blaming men, and that is going to be the thing that makes them slide into the Atlantic Ocean. They're just going to slide off the continental shelf. It'll just be the sheer weight of how much they're hiding by blaming men. Okay, sorry. I'm done. Oh, let's go. Let's keep going.
She said the strategy was backed by £1 billion funding for victim support, including for safe housing. Other measures include better NHS support for child and adult survivors of abuse and a funding boost for councils to provide safe housing for domestic abuse survivors.
Okay. What? Okay, can we go back to that end a bit? Because I'm still trying to figure out how it relates to the rest. How does this lead to
spending more money? That's what you do.
So I really was right about the goblins with the chicken, the fat chicken.
Well, it's mostly taxpayer money, so why not?
Yeah. Like, why aren't people more pissed at this? Because if we just even look at, like, take away all the stuff happening to boys and realizing that maybe boys don't need to be shamed more, like, could we stop doing that? Like, we've done this a lot and it hasn't really improved things, but let's just step away from that. You guys are paying for, like, you guys in the UK, you taxpayers in the UK are paying for interventions that are proven not to work. So you're basically just throwing money at bureaucrats. You know, if you ever watched Yes Minister, you're basically just paying for a hospital that hasn't seen a patient in 18 months because they're not going to do anything. They're not going to improve the situation. They say they're going to have violence against women in like 18 months. No, not with these interventions. And when you look at the language that they're using, it's all abstractions and theoreticals and, oh, wait, well, this is a prime opportunity for an experiment. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to give already misandrous teachers, let's face it, like they're already marking boys down. They already treat boys as second-class citizens. They're going to hand these teachers another weapon to stigmatize boys with, because surely that will make boys return to the fold. Like, do you think these things through? Like, if you really want your daughters to be safe, okay, you don't believe anything I say. You don't like me because I advocate for men and boys. You think I'm a pick-me or a handmaiden. But what about your girls? If you genuinely want them to be safer, think about this logically. You are handing, like, if a boy throws a red flag, he demonstrates antisocial behavior, probably as a result of two things. There are genetic factors and abuse. So he's probably experienced adverse childhood experiences, right? So he's been neglected, he's been sexually assaulted, he's been physically abused, he's subject to emotional abuse, that kind of thing, right? And he's expressing antisocial personality behaviors, okay? This system flags him and sends him to a person who's going to teach him that he is bad because he's a boy, not because of the abuse he suffered, and that he needs therapy to, or at least mentorship to overcome it, or to learn better coping strategies. No, they're going to blame patriarchy, Andrew Tate, being a boy, masculinity, any kind of aspirational identity, and they're going to tell him that he needs to suck up behavior from girls or through their actions. You're not going to tell them directly because they don't admit that girls also engage in this behavior. They're going to instill such a level of rage and antagonism and distrust for the system that might actually be able to turn him from the path of violent criminality in this boy. They are constructing rage monsters through this process. They're making your girls less safe. And this is entirely consistent with what they've done across the board with all domestic violence interventions. Like, no domestic violence interventions by feminists based on rigorous studies are beneficial. Some actually are negative. Like, a feminist goes in and lectures to men who are convicted of battering, and more men are like, yeah, I think I'll do more of that. Because they've just had to deal with weeks or months of a feminist lecture on this. Like, take responsibility for the patriarchy. But when compared to actual interventions based on iterative science, so in other words, there are beleaguered researchers out there who are researching these issues from a non-feminist perspective. So they're looking at it and they're saying, how do we really reduce the rate of domestic violence? And in particular, since the political will is here, how do we really reduce the rate of domestic violence against women and girls, right? And they're looking at it and they're conjecturing interventions based on psychology, based on understandings of why people become abusive, right? And they've constructed this intervention after iterations of cognitive behavioral therapy called ACTV. So it is, I'm terrible with acronyms, but it basically teaches batterers to try to get their behavior consistent with their values. right? So they say they identify values like you want to be a good partner, you want to be a good husband, you want to be protective, and all of this other stuff. Try to get your behavior consistent with those values. So it's an intervention that recognizes that maybe batterers don't batter because they're mustache twirling villains. They do it because they've learned poor coping strategies as children from those aforementioned adverse childhood experiences. And they find that these programs that have been developed iteratively, because you can iterate outside of feminist science is static. It hasn't changed. Like their interventions haven't changed since Duluth. They've managed to create interventions that have something like a 50% reduction in recidivism, which is phenomenal. Like that is insanely high. And yet we are stuck, like the political will remains with feminist interventions, which do nothing and sometimes make it worse. So if you really care about your girls and women, you should be opposing this, because the track record of these people is they make the problem worse or they do nothing. And you are spending billions, like one of these initiatives is $1 billion, millions and billions of pounds on nothing. Nothing. You'd probably be better off throwing your money at these boys directly as a solution. But that's not what's happening. You're giving it to the child industrial complex in the UK. And they're going to spend it on, well, not doing what they're saying they're going to do. Like in this thing, they're going to have violence against women and girls in 18, or what is it, 10 years? I don't know. No, they're not. None of their interventions have anywhere near the power to do something like that. And nobody talks about this in pure research, empirical, logical terms. What they say they're going to deliver, can they deliver it? No, you're throwing your money away. You're throwing it away. And you're going to most likely make your girls less safe. I'm not even bringing up immigration.
Yep.
Okay, let's keep going.
That's the end of the article.
Oh, is it? Oh, you're right. We're done. No, we're not done the show. We're done the article. All right. So let's look at, okay. I'll read off my my analysis, my total analysis. And then at the end, at the conclusion, I want to avoid after that. Thank you, Brian.
You just say after that. That's fine.
After that. Did you want to add anything to this? Like I've been talking.
No, I think that I mean, I said my piece. I'm just looking at the chat and making sure I'm not missing anything.
Well, if you want to jump on any of the people in the chat, go ahead. I
no, it's fine.
Shouldn't have had my
not really. It's all good.
Or espresso, cappuccino, espresso.
Yeah.
All right. So the main claim: the policy frames boys as a problem class. Let me just expand this because my eyes are not as young.
Because you have an idea on how to fight back.
Yeah, I do. I think that I think Tate has an appeal, but there's something else that needs to be done. The policy frames boys as problem class. The new United Kingdom violence against women and girls, I don't think is new. Strategy explicitly focuses on high-risk boys and young men in schools, training teachers to spot early signs of misogyny in boys, and sending flag boys, some as young as 11, to behavioral change schools. All right. What they're saying are red flags is basically antisocial behavior. And what's interesting about men who batter is they are actually aggressive to everyone. So you don't need to look for misogyny in boys. That is a weasel word that just basically means if he says something I don't like. And you don't need to look for it specifically, because all you have to look for is boys who are physically bullying and aggressive, right? To everyone. And you could probably look for that in girls. It's a little bit more covert because they're much more relational, right? And flag them and get them to services that actually work, like fathers. High-risk pupils are defined broadly and informally. Staff are told to look for harmful behaviors and attitudes towards women and girls, toxic ideas, sexually harmful behavior, harassment, sharing intimate images, and strongly misogynistic or Andrew Tate influenced views. If we didn't already have a problem with pedophiles, female pedophiles preying on boys in schools, now you give them a tool to get them alone because they have sexually harmful behavior as interpreted by Miss Sticky Fingers. There's no published objective checklist or clear evidentiary threshold. High risk is whatever trained staff decide is worrying enough to justify referral, which gives wide scope to subjective and ideological judgments about boys. Policy and media framing overwhelmingly present boys as potential perpetrators and girls as victims to be protected, with no symmetrical institutional machinery for misinjury, hatred of men, or for the abuse of boys by girls. So this is entirely one-sided, no recognition of misinjury in girls or abuse by girls. And there is substantial. Like, there's a reason why they only said 40% of teenagers. They only hide the percentage of girls when it is equal or higher. Main claim 2, evidence does not justify aggressive, boy-targeted anti-misogyny courses. Evaluations of school-based gender norms and respectful relationship programs with adolescents show some improvements in self-reported attitudes. For example, agreement with gender equality statements, but only a minority show clear, sustained reductions in actual abuse, coercion, or dating violence. Do you want me to share this so you have a visual, Brian?
Yeah, well, if it has a visual component, otherwise I can just
Well,
if it's just text, I don't really know if it matters.
Well, it's basically text. I don't know if people want to read along. Like, I'm going to put this in the resources in badgernation.online if you're interested. And it's going to have all the sources for all of this. So I have researched this quite a bit. And I got a lot of sources, a lot of things I've seen over the years. All right. So these studies frequently rely on short-term self-report attitude scales with weak or no control groups, limited behavioral measures, and short follow-ups, which limits confidence in their claims. So what the feminists are doing is they're using science that doesn't really support their claims. It definitely doesn't support the claim that they're going to reduce violence against women and girls in however many months or years to half. Yeah, that's not supported anywhere here. What they do show is supposedly the attitudes of boys improve, but what they're actually finding when they pair that with behavior is that it's not. Like, there's no real behavioral improvement. It may be transitory, like they might improve for a few months, but what's actually happening is that they are lying. They are learning to lie and give the party line on these courses. Right? And when they look at behaviors for a bit, the boys will report that they're doing better. And this is all within the context of pathologization of all boys. But so I reject that entirely. But within that context, the boys report that they're doing better. But after a certain amount of time, they stop, which is consistent with them also lying about what's going on in order to protect each other, which is not a surprise because all these interventions do is make boys suspicious of the institutions that do them and make it harder to identify and help boys who could use assistance with dealing with poor conflict management skills, poor anger management skills, because they've experienced adverse childhood events. All right. Reviews of stigma-based bullying and gender violence programs explicitly warn that social desirability and demand characteristics are major threats to validity. That's basically just science ease for what I just said, because adolescents quickly learn the right answers adults reward. Most rigorous evaluations that include peer reports, bystander outcomes, and school discipline data or victimization perpetration measures find that some programs reduce dating violence or harassment, but effects are modest, context specific, and often fade with time. Basically what I just said. And I just explained the mechanism. They lie because there you have no trust in the institution. And they're never going to have trust in the institution unless the institution recognizes the abuse that girls are doing. the violence that girls are doing, the sexual violence that girls are doing, the verbal abuse that girls are doing, the bullying that girls are doing. Even adolescents had bullying by girls, but somehow they made it the argument that if you recognize the bullying by girls as part of the problem, you are engaging in misogyny. Is that astounding? But as long as these interventions don't recognize women or girls' bad behavior, boys will continue to be suspicious of them and the institutions that promote them. Because why wouldn't you be? You're expected to eat something that someone else gets away with? That's fundamentally unfair. And most of our sense of pro-social behavior is reliant on feeling like we're being treated fairly. When behavior or observed behavior data are used, gains are generally smaller and less consistent with attitude shifts, which is consistent with boys performing compliance rather than undergoing deep moral change. Moral change to what? I mean, here I'm going to push back. Moral change to what? To recognizing that they are deserving of the same protection as their sisters? The United Kingdom, without actually saying, hey, the reason why you're not deserving of the same protections of your sisters is because you're stronger as a boy. Are you willing to say that? No. You just want to focus only on your girls without even telling your boys, oh, hey, that's because we think you're stronger. Like, you won't even acknowledge that this might be a result of some kind of unique value proposition that boys bring in terms of strength. The United Kingdom, you'll just demand that boys carry more, and if they fail, it's not because you've asked for more, it's because they're weak. The United Kingdom's school strand of the VA.GG, I hate acronyms. This one looks like a bug.
What?
This one looks like a bug. It bugs me. VAWG.
Yeah, violence against women and girls. That's what it stands for.
Strategy. I know.
VOG.
VOG. That's a good VOG. VOG have chicken. Strategy largely leans on broad what works summaries and vague claims that prevention and challenging attitudes help, rather than on direct evidence that short compulsory behavior change courses for flagged boys reduce later violence against women and girls. Of course they don't. Feminist interventions don't actually change men who engage in violence against women or boys. Most likely they won't do that for boys either. They just entrench already existing anger. Like, you get a boy who's acting out because he's been abused. You send him to a feminist counselor, and what does she do? Abuses him some more. Problem solved. No, problem made worse. Official texts reference pioneering research, finding the most effective way to teach, and innovation funding to test approaches, which implicitly admits that the precise model being rolled out is not empirically proven in this context. So they don't even know what the hell they're doing. They're just basically like, give us money.
Yep.
Give us money.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. And if it doesn't work, we'll blame your sons. This is insane.
Yep.
Argument 3. Feminist perpetrator models underperform. Non-ideological models do better. I covered this, but basically it just goes through the achieving change through values-based behavior and how non-feminist interventions work so much better for than feminist interventions, in part because they actually iterate them. Like, feminists are just static. It's like the Duluth model. Nothing changes. Nothing's changed since the 80s. The non-feminist researchers, who are incredibly beleaguered and underfunded and are the true heroes of this, they iterate. Something doesn't work. They go back to the drawing board. They change things. They change this. They learn more psychology. They do what they need to make it work. And their interventions, because of that, are effective. We don't use them because they're not ideologically convenient to feminists. This pattern indicates that non-ideological skills, trauma, and behavior-focused interventions are more promising than static feminist models, which have not substantively updated despite underwhelming results. Want you guys to put a pin in this. Feminist models are underwhelming. They don't work, and yet they keep consistently getting funding. Why? Because they package themselves. Excuse me. They package themselves in an appealing way. You're saving girls. You're not doing any of the thing of the sort. Here's a good rule of thumb. If you have a problem, you don't throw out half the evidence and expect to get a solution. That's what's happening here overall. And the researchers who don't do that, guess what? They're finding solutions. Girls in feminist spaces are not uniquely innocent. Misandry is real. Scientific Reports article, Women Who Hate Men, a comparative analysis across extremist Reddit communities. We've covered this extensively. Misogynist communities show what somewhat higher toxicity scores, but distributions are similar across communities. Both misogynist and misandrist feminist spaces contain substantial toxic content. At the user level, emotional perspective, the feminist community shows the highest peak of hate sentiment, followed by the gender critical space, and then the men's rights space, implying that misandrist and feminist aligned communities can be at least as hate dense as their misogynists. But honestly, the feminists are worse on a personal level. So they're engaging personally more with the hate content. That's what this means. The authors conclude that when male to female and female to male hate are examined together, there's no systemic differences in hate based on perpetrator's gender, and that gendered hate speech is a common factor of noxious communities. Broader work on online hate suggests that men and women both experience considerable online hostility. Analyses that break down exposure sometimes find no major gender gaps in experiencing cruel or hateful speech, contrary to the narratives that only women and girls are targeted. Again,
Women and gills.
Gills. Maybe I should just call them gills from now on. Okay, claim 5. Boys' defensive responses are treated as pathology rather than as reactions to a double standard. Qualitative research with teachers on gender-based violence prevention in England reports that boys often respond with defensiveness, mockery, or silence when they feel that they're being framed as the problem sex. Teachers themselves worry about boys' reluctance to engage under those conditions. So what feminists are doing is they're saying we're going to flag the antisocial boys. We're going to subject them to group blaming and shaming that they share with other boys. You realize that's going to create a block, right? Instead of recognizing that boys that are antisocial as a result, and it's not like when I say that adverse childhood experiences cause boys to engage in antisocial behaviors, you will be surprised at the percentage of boys who experience these behaviors who actually go on to engage in any kind of abuse towards others. I think it's like 6%. You think about that. These are abused boys, and only like 6% of them, maybe 10% in some categories, go on to abuse others. That's how good boys are. They don't deserve crap. All right. Studies on online misogyny in schools show that some boys use references to influencers like Andrew Tate and the Manosphere, talking points to provoke staff and peers, especially when they perceive adults as hostile or one-sided. So what's happening is these boys know that these teachers and lecturers go bonkers when they mention Andrew Tate. So what do? They troll them.
Yes.
They consciously act in ways to troll these women who are treating them like second-class citizens. The problem is that once they do that, it justifies more interventions. Like these women get to say, well, this is exactly why I need to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I need to control these boys. I need to make sure that they feel shame for existing and for the existence of the criminal behavior of boys in general. It's like, why are you allowing these women anywhere near your sons? Anyway, And then these boys get upset because, as you do, like, I mean, have you ever experienced a situation where someone just zones in on some random biological feature that you have no control of and starts telling you how you're a criminal based on it? Like, don't you think that creates resentment? So these boys are resentful over that, as any normal human being would be, and they turn around and troll these women. Yeah. Okay. What is
They
the
deserve to be trolled.
What is the purpose of any of this? Psychoeducational research on boys and gender role conflict links acting out, withdrawal, and oppositional stances to perceived unfairness, shame, and being treated as defective, not simply to toxic masculinity in the abstract. So what feminists are calling toxic masculinity is, I am going to screw this word up. I'm not even gonna bother. It's doctor inflicted harm. Feminists are going in and inflicting the harm that creates the natural response, which they then call toxic masculinity. If you punch someone in the face, they're going to get angry at you. And feminists call that toxic masculinity. Literally, it is a movement to remove the legitimacy of men establishing boundaries with feminists and with women who are willing to use feminist talking points.
Mm-hmm.
And it does nothing. It's just creating more of the problem. It's alienating more boys. It's failing more boys with adverse childhood experiences. Like, yeah, there could be an argument that it could be good to flag these boys and in a way that doesn't discriminate against them or make them, like, single them out in the body of the student body. Get them additional help with conflict resolution, anger management, and values-based mentorship. Yeah, that might be, there's a kernel of truth. The same with girls with this problem, or you could just give them their fathers, but we're not dealing with that universe yet. There's a kernel there, but this is nothing. This is taking those boys and weaponizing them further. It's like taking uranium you pull and turning it into plutonium and turning it into bomb grade plutonium. This is refining the violence. When boys
it's on purpose though. It's like I think the hope is that it will create dysfunction, which could lead to more, a crime or some social problem, and then that further justifies more dysfunction, because the blame will never go on, all of these measures that are being taken, right? It'll just be on the biology of boys and men.
On boys and men for their toxicity. So you need more. You need more of this. That's the great irony of this. Then you just need more of it. Like, this is the solution, right? All of this is going to this is my prediction. None of this is going to materialize. This is all vague, unsupported language with no empirical science behind it. They aren't going to be reducing violence against women and girls at all. And I predict that it's likely that it's going to increase. And in 10 years, they're going to come back and say, we need 100 billion now, right? To deal with the problem, because it's so much bigger. Really, it's so much bigger. I wonder why. Boys are being asked to accept that their sex is watched and corrected, while similar or worse behavior by girls goes largely unexamined. This daily double standard is a plausible driver of what is then labeled boys' bad behavior. When boys react by arguing back, mocking,
Trolling, yeah.
They're trolling or withdrawing. My cat's trolling me a little bit. Okay, if you want to be here, you're going to be squished. Those responses are folded back into risk labeling, resistance to anti-misogyny work, which justifies more surveillance and reinforces the sense that self-defense is pathologized. Yes, because you're subjecting your boys to an ideology that believes they don't deserve any boundaries. You wonder why the UK has like a absolute epidemic of female pedophiles right now?
Mm-hmm.
You teach the boys they don't deserve boundaries. Maybe that's a problem. Main claim 6. Stigma-heavy, boy-targeted interventions are dangerous for boys' mental health. Is it necessary to even say this? Boys as a group already have higher suicide rates and poorer educational outcome in many high-income contexts. Yet vague and gender-based violence frameworks give little attention to boys' mental health risks, focusing instead on their role as potential predators or perpetrators. Literature on stigma and youth mental health shows that being labeled as a problem group or high risk increases avoidance of services, withdrawal, hopelessness, and shame, which are associated with worse mental health outcomes and suicidality. I think I said that word right. Work on suicidality. Work on boys' gender role conflict finds that internalizing a narrative of inherent dangerousness or defectiveness is linked to higher depression, self-loathing, and suicidality. That's right. Did I get it right that time? Suicidality?
Yeah, that's suicidality, yeah.
I am improving. Small baby steps. Okay, so the other thing that's linked to suicidality and depression is feeling like you're burdened. And that's 150% of all feminist rhetoric directed at boys, is that they are an unfair burden on society and women and girls. Targeting only boys as high risk while ignoring misandry and abusive boys forces boys into a destructive choice. Internalize an unfair story and harm themselves, or reject the institution and risk further marginalization and punishment. We need a new Pink Floyd album just for this nonsense.
I don't know. Pink Floyd might agree with this stuff.
Yeah, you're probably
never
right.
meet your heroes.
I should probably Google that, but then I'd be like, oh, no.
I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I know. Okay, argument 7. Whole school gender inclusive approaches are available but sidelined. UNESCO and United Nations Girls Education Initiatives whole school frameworks for school-related gender-biased violence emphasize that both girls and boys can perpetrate and experience violence and recommend the behavior standards, reporting, and protection apply equally across genders. I cannot believe UK. How have you made the UN the good guy in all of this? UK? How did you do this? Like, I mean, it's relative, of course. It's still, like give kids their fathers back, but the UN is sounding like the voice of reason. That's like crazy talk. I've fallen into a rabbit hole and come into some weird upside down world. These frameworks advocate universal behavior-focused policies, for example, clear rules on harassment, image-based abuse, and physical aggression, staff training, parent engagement, student participation, and carefully designed targeted support that avoids stigmatizing specific identity groups. I imagine boys aren't involved in that, but reviews of effective interventions for adolescent boys and young men stress that programs work better when they are offered to the whole class rather than only to problem boys. I guess it's always problem boys, huh? No problem girls there. Focus on practical relationship skills, emotional literacy, and conflict management. Avoid shaming and accusatory language, and position boys as allies and stakeholders, not as a threat block. And I'm sure that's still feminist informed. It's like the sane feminists, they're still feminists, still ideologically possessed, but still have the ability to realize that they might be following an ideological line off a cliff. Right? But then we're not going to do that. No. It's just blaming and shaming. That surely that will fix everything. Argument 7. Given the evidence, continuing this model is indistinguishable from malicious disregard. Policymakers and advocates in this area are drawing on the same body of research that documents weak and inconsistent violence reduction effects of many gender ideological interventions, modest, often fading impacts on behavior, serious stigma and mental health risks of targeting boys as a problem group, and the reality that girls in feminist spaces can also be deeply hateful or abusive. Despite that, they're expanding stigma-heavy, boy-targeted school programs with strong political rhetoric and moral certainty, while leaving misandry and the harms to boys' mental health and educational prospects completely unaddressed. In ethical and legal terms, persisting with an intervention model that has weak evidence of benefit and foreseeable, well-documented risks for a vulnerable group that fits the pattern of reckless or malicious disregard. The actors may not openly state a desire to harm boys, but their refusal to connect obvious dots is not distinguishable from malice in practice when it comes to boys' welfare. Indistinguishable from the legal definition of malice. This behavior is indistinguishable. And the probability is that it's driven by a profit motive. Right? So did you have anything to say to that, Brian? Did you want to add anything? Did you find anything interesting that somebody said that you want to address?
No, I'm good.
Because I think, unfortunately, my cat has licked all my freaking water containers, like glasses and mugs. So I have no water.
My goodness.
And she's shedding all over me, and I'm actually allergic to her.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll persevere, guys. I'll persevere. So I said that there is some advice to fighting back. And basically it is just call it what it is. Right? Just call it what it is. So for now, boys are trolling these women who are doing this to them, who are victimizing them by using Andrew Tate and quoting Andrew Tate. And they may not even believe in what he has to say, but he knows it infuriates them. But they know that it infuriates the feminists who are doing this to them, treating them like second-class citizens. And again, nothing is going to change about men's or boys' engagement in this until you recognize that girls are abusive and that girls are also hateful, and treat this as a gender-neutral problem, not a gendered problem that boys are uniquely to blame for. But here's the thing. So Andrew Tate gives them a way to fight back, basically. And he also gives them a context to deal with this situation. And what the problem that I have with that is in taking responsibility for this as a personal issue and turning it into like I'm strong enough to overcome it, there isn't direct calling out the institutional abuse that this is. Or this is not a weight boys should have to carry. Yes, they are carrying it. And that is honestly, like when I ask Perplexity, are men and boys angry enough about what they're dealing with? And the answer is no. It's just like it's astounding that boys who are abused, who experience like multiple forms of adverse childhood events, like only the smallest amount of them go on to abuse. It's astounding that boys are enduring and swallowing this in a culture where we think using the term mailman or using man in a profession will alienate girls from taking part. So we believe the least amount of emotional friction will cause women to faint and just be unable to deal with it. And yet look at what we're doing with boys. And boys continue to strive. They continue to work hard. They continue to get employment. They continue to do the jobs that support all of us in our comfortable reality. They continue to be excellent. And there's very little actual violence going on. Considering there's very little, even angry pushback going on. So, I mean, I think Andrew Tate might have a point when he says that boys are superior. We're certainly expecting them to carry a hell of a lot more. So what does that say to us? That we're expecting boys to carry way more than girls. So boys have to carry the entire weight of guilt for patriarchy and the sins of criminal men on their back and everything else that we put on them. But if girls are expected to even manage their own emotions when it comes to, things being called a mailman or a what are other male words, congressman, right? All of that, that's going to stop girls from going into like this, like just language is going to destroy girls' confidence. Seeing an attractive woman in a bikini is going to destroy girls' confidence. You know, saying anything negative about women ever is going to destroy girls' confidence. Barbie saying math is hard is going to destroy girls' confidence. Meanwhile, you are dumping this gigantic boulder of shame and blame, group shame and blame on boys. Are you doing it? Why do you think it's because boys deserve this? Or do you think it's because they can carry it better? Because expecting this group of people to carry more does suggest you think they can. And Tate is tapping into that. You're being expected to carry more because you're stronger. And obviously, that's the real message if you think about it. Boys have to carry the weight of sin. Girls can't even carry the consequences of their own choices. That's right. What does that mean about what we think about boys' strength versus girls' strength? And boys' moral seriousness versus girls' moral seriousness. So you're really this whole narrative is really feeding into Andrew Tate simply saying, well, you do this because you're superior, and you stand up under the weight because you're superior. It's because you are stronger. All right. But it still doesn't call out what needs to be called out. And what needs to be called out, and this is what I suggest, right? This is something that I do myself. I find a target, a pivot point, a keystone that I know is both critical and vulnerable in terms of feminist rhetoric. Like one of the ones that I use a lot is the statistics around sexual assault, because sexual assault is a keystone rhetorical weapon that feminists used. And they use it to justify how we discriminate against boys and men in various programs, because, of course, everybody knows that men and boys are more sexually violent. Well, we actually no, we don't know that, because there's powerful evidence that has come out in the last 20 years that women and girls engage in the same amount of sexually aggressive behavior as boys and men. And this evidence is very powerful. Like, it pretty much has put the question to rest. Nobody talks about it, except for me. I bring it up everywhere because I know that this is pivotal and it's weak, it's vulnerable. So you pound at it and you just keep punching at it as many times as you can. Every time they drop their guard, a feminist drops their guard and somebody sends me a message, bam, rhetorically, not physically, right? You know, they
Sure.
start posturing about how men are evil because I just dropped that over and over and over again. You hit the target over and over and over again. It's like Bruce Lee. I don't fear a man who's practiced 100 or 1,000 techniques. I fear the man who's practiced one technique 1,000 times. That's what you do. You punch it 1,000 times. You just need to know where. And where, for these ideologues, is what this actually is identifying what they are actually doing. And what they are actually doing, the evidence points, the probability is they are sacrificing boys. They are sacrificing you and your mates to make money. And they're not just stopping with the sacrifice of boys. They're also sacrificing girls to make money, to create make-work projects that have no accountability, and you can blame your victim or even blame the person you're supposed to help for. Right? If any woman calls out and says, "Hey, wait, what are you doing? You're a pick-me, you're a handmaiden. You have internalized misogyny." So what feminism excels at is justifying and offloading blame for its failures. Right? Hit that. That's the target you need to hit with this. So this is my recommendation. Instead of trolling with Andrew Tate, tell these ideologues to their face that you know they are abusing you and your mates. in order to make money, and that you have proof. And watch them go white with terror. And of course, they'll immediately, shuck and jive and put the bureaucratic face on and start problematizing who you are. But they'll do that no matter what you do. But if you call out what they're doing and why they're doing it, and that you have the proof, they can't stand against that. And if they do persecute you, like if a boy does do that and actually precisely hits the target, rhetorical punch right to the target, and that administrator, that lecturer, whatever they call themselves, prosecutes him for that, other boys will see it, right? And you will feel the difference between trolling them with Andrew Tate, which makes you a naughty boy, and trolling them with this, not trolling, but telling them the truth, which makes you dangerous. And just keep hitting that target over and over and over again, because it is vulnerable. They are vulnerable to the truth. It's like that, the one Peter Capaldi, Doctor Who.
Oh, Peter Capaldi. Wait, Capaldi, Doctor Who, right?
Yeah. The special that he did where he punched through a wall of diamond by dying over and over and over again. And I know it's a lot of work, but it's just that you just have to hit the target over and over again. And that's how you become a machine. You find out the targets you need to hit, you hit them, and you know what you're talking about. You got the proof, and they can't stand up against it. Like you go from bringing up Andrew Tate and what a naughty boy, to complete silence and fury and terror. What did you just say? What did you just expose? Because that's where they're weak. Recognition of what they're doing and stripping them from the moral authority, the moral justifications for doing it. All right.
Yep.
Okay, I'm good. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think we covered it. I think that's good.
Yeah.
I looked at the Guardian article in the meantime. It's basically just saying the same thing the BBC one did. In fact, the BBC article is probably a little better.
Yeah.
And that's saying something about the Guardian. So.
All right. So once again, if you want to send us a message at any time, we get these messages. They stay. They don't go anywhere. Like super chats go somewhere. I don't know where they go. Go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We will respond to whatever commentary you give us at the next show, basically, where we're both on. And once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you want to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. We have 9 days left and about 4,500 to go. So I know it's pretty slow during December, but I really appreciate it if you would take a little bit of time to go and help us out. I'm hoping we get a little over so we can do what we did last year, and I can kick some more to Brian. So anyway, feedthebadger.com/support for that, and I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
Okay, well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you all in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.